I just want to be clear. You left Inside Edition. This was your choice.
100%.
You decided 100%. After 30 years.
I kind of felt like I've been here 30 years. I can ask for this. And I asked and they said no. And I asked again and they said no. And I said, I really, really, really would love to do this remotely. And they said, well, no. I said, okay, fine. So how are we going to announce my departure and what date should we agree upon?
Hi, friend. Welcome to Call Me Friend, the podcast where we call my friends. Right off the top, friend, I do have a favor to ask you, and I know you've heard this from other podcasts, but really, if you could like, share, subscribe, all those things, that is how we're going to be able to grow and how I will be able to bring more of my friends to you and get to meet more of your friends. So thank you in advance. Today, I am thinking about and I am talking about starting over. You might be freaking out a little bit because what are the chances? You too might be in a place where you're starting over with something, where you know you need to start over with something, but you haven't quite gotten there yet. But starting over is a theme that applies to what's going on with you. I certainly have had to start over a number of times in my life. And I think this might be kind of controversial though. I think there are different kinds of starting over. There is the get kicked on your ass, have to get up, dust yourself off and get going again, starting over. And that is actually what I specialize in. Sometimes things like when I was let go from CNN, when they came to me and they said they weren't going to renew my contract. And short version of the story, I took that, left CNN and started my own media company where I focus on uplifting and positive content. Talk about a pivot from a career that was based on doom and gloom to one that is all about uplifting and positive. I mean, I really did like news and I was good at it, but things like this podcast are really much more authentic to what I'm about and what makes my heart sing. And so sometimes when people hear that story, they say, oh, Daryn, you're so brave. You're so brave. You went out and started your own company and created this. And I have to say, I disagree. I don't think I was brave. I simply was doing what I had to do. I didn't just pick up and leave CNN. No, I had to get kicked out the door before I went on to start something new. So yes, fire me, break up with me, kick me, knock me down. I will get back up again. But pick myself up and just leave because I'm not the person to do that. To me, the real kind of brave is the person who is in a perfectly good relationship. Well, okay, maybe not perfect, but in a good relationship, they're happy, they're in a good job, everything today is good, but they can look forward and see where they are today is not going to serve them, or they can get themselves to a better place. So they voluntarily pick up, leave what is comfortable and what is good, and move on to go after something better. That, to me, is what is really brave when it comes to starting over. And that is why I'm so excited today to talk to my friend, Deborah Norville. Deborah is nothing short of a broadcasting legend. You might know her from Inside Edition, where she was the anchor for 30 years. You might know her for her award-winning journalism. And if you go in the Wayback Machine like I do, you might know the story of how she was the golden woman at NBC News. She was picked to become the replacement, the anchor on the Today Show to replace Jane Pauley, only to be unceremoniously let go during her maternity leave. Can you imagine? Well, what did she do? She picked herself up and she started over. And that journey led her to Inside Edition, where, like I said, she has been the anchor for 30 years. And only recently did she announce that she has decided to leave Inside Edition, her own choice. Why did she do that? How did she do that? What went into that decision? And what is she doing to start over? There's one way to find out. Let's call Deborah. This episode is powered by Miss Lou's Cabin, an Airbnb property on a remote section of the Georgia coast. Have you been at a beautiful resort and kind of looked around and wondered, what did this place look like before they paved paradise and put up a parking lot? Well, now you have your chance. with a visit to Miss Lou's cabin. Miss Lou's cabin sits on 7 private acres on a tidal saltwater marsh about 50 minutes south of Savannah, Georgia. It is a place so quiet, you don't hear any road noise. No, instead you hear pink spoonbills, wild dolphins feeding in the creek, the breeze whistling through the Spanish moss that drips from the countless grand oak trees that are all around the property. You can fish, you can crab, you can grab fresh shrimp, all from the private dock that leads to the creek in front of the cabin. It is truly from another time. And all this while you stay in a restored log cabin that has all the comforts and amenities of a really nice home. And while you visit, you can go to Savannah for great restaurants and culture. You can go to Simon's, you can go to Tybee, you can go to Jekyll to check out the beaches. If this sounds good for you, you want to check out Miss Lou's cabin, you'll find a link in the show notes, or simply if you Google Miss Lou's cabin, that will actually take you to the Airbnb link. Come see us on the Georgia coast at Miss Lou's cabin. Well, hi there.
Hey, where are you? You look like you're at a golf course.
This is one Georgia girl talking to another Georgia girl. So put on your Georgia hat.
Yep.
We are on the Georgia coast, about 50 minutes south of Savannah.
Fantastic. I think I know where you are. We won't tell.
No, that's okay. We talk about it. This is where my husband and I ran away during COVID, and we came for 2 days and we got ruined, and we're not leaving.
That's great. And we're doing a 2-camera shoot here. I think that's amazing.
A little bit. It's what we're able to do. You know, it kind of all goes back to small market television all over again.
Absolutely. Well, you look great. Exactly. You literally have not changed.
Thank you. Oh, well, you too. And I really wanted to check in and make hooray and celebrate this huge moment for you of leaving Inside Edition after 30 years.
It's crazy.
And what a moment.
It was so wonderful. The send-off broadcast that they put together was amazing. They interviewed my husband and my children and went down memory lane with some of the stories. But the nicest part was at the very end. I was in the newsroom, and we rarely shoot in the newsroom unless there's, as you will well know, when something goes wrong in the studio, it's like, okay, fine, let's go to the newsroom. We'll make it work. And the entire team was there with me. And that was so special because, as you know, the people you work with are people you spend more time with than your own family. And they do become like family. And to spend that many years with so many of the people in the Inside Edition team was a bittersweet moment, but it was more sweet than bitter. But I did mention a woman who had been at the station where I started in Atlanta, one Georgia girl to another, Channel 5. Mm-hmm. And I was still a college intern. I was getting maybe $50 a week to work as a reporter, but I was getting a cup of coffee out of the machine. And she came up to me and she said, "You being here has taken away the job from someone who has a right to be here. You're not qualified." Like, she was absolutely Ouch. Right. Yeah. But what an awful thing to say to somebody.
Exactly.
And when I was standing there with my amazing team and this incredible career, and it ain't over, but it was over at Inside Edition, that woman popped into my head. And I realized that for 47 years, I have been trying to prove that woman she was wrong. And I don't know where she is or what happened to her, but she was taking up rent-free space in my head. And I'd like to think that when I said that, and what I said to the people watching was, at some point in your life, there will be someone who underestimates you, who doesn't believe in you, and you can accept their assessment of what they think your abilities are, or you can prove them wrong. So there you go.
So many things to say about that. First of all, I will make the verdict. She was wrong. You did belong, and you do belong.
Thank you.
And one thing I've so admired about you over the years, I don't know if you consciously or unconsciously did this, or it was from that moment, or you would have just been like this anyway. But you have gone against the stereotype of women not supporting women.
Oh.
You have been very proactive about supporting your TV sisters and other women as well. And I so admire that and appreciate that about you.
Yeah, thank you. Look, if we don't support one another, how can we expect anybody to support us? And the women that you work with, the people that you work with, but you're speaking specifically about women, like, I know the challenges they're facing. When the whole Me Too thing happened, every woman that I spoke to had a story. And, we never told the story because that went with the territory. But we were all able sort of, after the fact, able to support one another. Like, oh my gosh, it happened to you too? Yeah. You too? Oh my God. All of us? Yeah. All of us.
In terms of being told that you don't belong. I had a local news director who told me, Daryn, in television, there's this it, and some people have it and some people don't. And clearly you don't.
Oh.
So, if you work really hard, you'll make it in this market. But like, why would you ever dream of getting out of, small market local news?
Wow.
That's who sat on my shoulder for my TV news career.
And then I hope eventually you felt like you went, boom, you're out of there. I'm on CNN. I'm on national TV, and you're still in whatever little local market. And I hope you're enjoying my broadcast.
Funny twist on that. So when they did bring me to CNN and I'm sitting in that boss's office, and he literally said these words to me, Daryn, in TV, there's it, some people have it and some people don't. And clearly you do, but I'm sure you've heard that many times before.
I love it.
Well, one version of that I have heard.
I love it. Well,
exactly. I will say though,
great.
about the news director in that market, he built a very successful TV station. So kind of rather than being bitter as time went on, I think I kind of got more perspective of, I didn't have it for that. And that's not where I was supposed to stay. So
because your it was bigger.
Yeah.
Your it was elsewhere.
Big it.
Yeah, that's it.
Big it. Well, speaking of decisions and knowing your worth, I just want to be clear. You left Inside Edition. This was your choice.
100%.
You decided 100%. After 30 years.
Yeah. In fact, COVID, you mentioned that you moved down to the coast during COVID and decided that was where you guys needed to stay. During COVID, we also were outside the studio. All of us were. And we had Inside Edition looked pretty darn good. I'd figured out a way because my studio was virtual. So I didn't have a set, which turned out to be a blessing during COVID because I was able to imagine behind me is a big screen TV. I was able to use a video that I had of the Inside Edition set and use my AirPlay from my iPad to throw it up on my TV. So it looked like the studio behind me. I had a couple of TV lights and I actually owned a camera, which I did not know how to operate. Someone had to FaceTime with me and tell me which buttons to push, but we got it going.
Yes.
And it looked like Inside Edition in the studio. We just didn't have the graphics over the shoulder. And it was such a dream and such a blessing to do the show remotely that way that, the world came back to normal. We're back in studio. Yeah. But there was a part of me that really longed to be remote. I have a 2-hour commute to the office and I just didn't want to do that anymore. And I kind of felt like I've been here 30 years. I can ask for this. And I asked and they said no. And I asked again and they said no. And I said, I really, really, really would love to do this remotely. And they said, well, no. I said, okay, fine. So how are we going to announce my departure and what date should we agree upon? And after they picked their jaw up off the table, they offered me more money, which was wonderful. I said, great, I'll use that money to make an even better remote studio. And they just, it's their candy store and I'm just, one person in the candy store. And they decided that that's not how they want to run their candy store. That's their prerogative. And how do you leave with anything other than gratitude after a 30 plus year run? So that's why I left. And I'll tell you, the happiest person in America was my husband because, he just wants more of me. And this way he gets it.
Because I was wondering how you knew and when you knew. And it sounds like that was kind of a process.
Yeah, I think it's a process, but I also think, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your program, the media world is changing big time. It's a different environment. The story selection is different. The audience numbers have gone down. Inside Edition is still, I left with it in its strongest possible position. But given what's going on in the broadcasting industry, it's going to be a challenge going forward. And it just seemed like the right time for me to move on for a variety of reasons. But the biggest, what other story am I going to do? I remember I left Atlanta. I'd been a local reporter during college and then for a couple of years after I graduated from Georgia. And when I was going into my file and pulling out the script from the same story I had done for the previous 3 years, the Chattahoochee River Raft Race comes to mind. That was one of them. Like, I can't think of a different way to do this story. And I just looked and that's when you have to leave. And I felt like, not that we'd reached the end of the story possibilities, but they were all starting to get a little the same. And there weren't any new stories, and I needed some new challenges. It's, the viewers deserve to have every single person on the team just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell you this story. This is so incredible. And I was kind of meh about a lot of stuff. So it was the right time. And let's face it, 30 is an unbelievable number that I don't know how that happened. Suddenly I look back like, holy smokes, it's been 3 decades. I was in that job longer than Johnny Carson was in his job. That's insane. So yes, it was time to move on.
Yes. And so to get the actual fact right, you are the longest running female anchor on a news program in American history. Is that?
Longest running anchor.
Anchor. Take female out of it. Longest running anchor.
Yeah. Walter Cronkite was only 19 years. Barbara Walters was 25. Sorry, Barbara was 20, I think it was on 2020. In the same job, right? That's what we're talking about. I mean, I guess there've been people who've been doing it longer, but in the same gig, even Johnny Carson, I outlasted him. Yeah.
Very
crazy.
Good. Well, you definitely have done that. And the theme what I think of this conversation is starting over.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about you, and I was talking about this before I brought you on, was that there's different kinds of starting over. There's my kind of starting over, which is get kicked on your ass, get fired, get dumped, and have to pick yourself up and do it. And then there's this kind that you just did. And that is, things are good. Things are fine. But as I look forward, I can see that this isn't going to serve me going into my future. And so you pick yourself up from a comfortable, excellent situation and you start over. And I think that that's amazing. I think that's brave. I think that's inspiring. I think that's a whole other level of starting over.
Well, I'll tell you, it's probably easier to do what I'm doing right now because I have done what you did, getting kicked on your butt and out the door and all that good stuff. So I think the lucky ones of us have our crisis before we're 40 because there's seems to be something sort of magical about that number. If you're on the other side of 40, somehow life is over, which of course is total hogwash. But I don't look at it as starting over. I see it as turning the page. The book is not over. The book is not completed. A chapter, a very long chapter, has just been ended, but a new chapter begins. And when I've written a few books, I always like to start my chapters with a quote. And if I were putting the quote on the page of whatever chapter number this is for this new part of my life, it would probably be something that's kind of been playing in my head, which is, don't be sad that it's ending. Be grateful that it happened. And I think when you go through life with gratitude, I mean, it's one of the books I've written is about the power of gratitude. I think when you go through life with gratitude as sort of the gasoline that you're putting in your tank, you'll go longer, farther, and faster with less friction. And the other thing about it is I realized as I was looking back on some of the amazing things that I got to do and the moments. And I was, I'm sorry that Pope Francis died, but I was really glad he did before I left Inside Edition because I got to do one more Pope funeral at the Vatican. But I was reliving all these old memories. And instead of being sad, I realized that I was experiencing the psychological upward spiral. I was getting that boost, that lift. And I mean, you know me, I'm kind of nerdy. I started researching that. There's actually science that backs up some of the benefits that happen when you look back on your happy memories and some of the ways you activate positive mechanisms in your body. So I realized, well, there's a prosaic reason why I'm getting kind of jazzed about looking back at the past and not getting maudlin about it.
So there's a physical thing happening. There's like a release of a hormone or something.
Yeah. You've got the dopamine release is going on. That's one of the things that's happening. It's kind of long and complicated, but yeah, there are actual processes that are going on when you, for instance, in this, I called up and interviewed the professor at Rutgers University who's been studying this. That's how weird I am. And I was talking to him and I said, so tell me, what have you found? He said, you've had an MRI probably, right? Ever?
Yes. I
mean, they're scary, right? You get in that thing, it's scary. It's very intimidating and it's noisy and loud and all that stuff. So they asked these people before they were sent to the place where the MRI machine was, they asked them, tell us about some of your happy memories, some of the great moments in your life that really just, lift you and fill your spirit when you think about those things. And they have it written down. They wait a couple of days. Then they bring the people back and they put them in the MRI machine and they ask them, so they're doing a brain scan, an active brain scan. They ask them to think about those memories. And while they're in there, they're asking them probing questions about those particular memories. And they're seeing the brain activity increase in one part of their brain as they're reliving these memories. So that's kind of amazing. So there actually is a physical thing that's happening. But the other thing, when they said, okay, we're done, we're going to pull you out of the MRI machine, some of these people said, oh, no, I'm having a great time. Leave me in. That's how powerful the power of memory can be, of happy memories. So to everybody who's listening, make a list of the good stuff that's happened in your life in the past, because it'll probably help you have better stuff happen in the future.
Well, I suspect some people are listening because we're talking about starting over who might need some inspiration on that. So if you'll allow me for a second, I want to go to a not so happy memory because I think it led to a really good place. And that is what happened with the Today Show. So here you were, I don't want to say golden child because you were a full-fledged woman, but you were
they said golden girl.
Okay, golden girl, because they could then, not that they would ever do that now. And you replaced Jane Pauley.
Yep.
And then you were unceremoniously let go while you were on maternity leave. There's so much wrong with this story. And I think of that Deborah, I just want to go hug her because what was going on, hormones and this and that in your career, that must have been, was that a difficult time? I mean, that was starting over. That was like a big what now?
Oh yeah, that was a big what now. And it's funny. It was obviously it was super hard. And, I remember the media writer for the Chicago Tribune wrote of me, that I had been used up and left for dead on the side of the road. I believe that's a direct quote. And it pretty well summed up my career. But, and for anybody who's listening, who's really gone through something similarly devastating as that was for me, I love to share what I learned. And let me find a pencil here. I'm just going to lean forward and I'm going to just draw a little thing. And one of the things, so we all know about a wagon wheel, right? Yeah, we all know what a wagon wheel looks like. So here's a wagon wheel. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. So this is there's
and some people can see us and some people are just listening.
All right. So if you're just listening, you know what a wagon wheel looks like. It's a circle with the spokes and then there's the thing in the middle. And what I realized I had done is fall into the trap that many of us do. And that was I defined who I was by what I did. And suddenly what I did, I don't do anymore and likely will never, ever do again, because as the man from the Tribune said, I've been left for dead on the side of the road. And all I'd ever wanted to do since I was 17 was be a television reporter. And what I realized was I didn't know who I was because who I thought I was Deborah Norville, the lady on the TV show, on the Today Show. And what I did was realize that who you are, who any of us are, is not what you do. That's a label. It's like those name tags you get at the conference. Hello, my name is. What you do is one of those labels. Who you are is what you believe in. Who you are is why you think you were put on this planet. Who you are is is how you believe you are meant to serve others, because I believe we're all meant to serve others. Those are the things that make up who you are. Who you are is, I am happiest when I am doing X. And so when you've redefined who you are with the accurate definition of who you are, you now have the center hub of that wagon wheel. Because if you don't know who you are and you try to make a decision, it's just like a wagon wheel going without that center hub, it's going to collapse. But when you know who you are, you've got that strong foundation, and every decision you make, who I'm going to marry, where I'm going to work, what my profession's going to be, how I'm going to volunteer, where I want to live, what clubs do I want to join, whatever the decision, if you make it based on who you are, you will make a better decision. And here's the best thing. When you make that decision, whatever it is, based on who you are, you will be able to execute whatever steps are needed to accomplish that decision with a lot more confidence. It's like you've put on a coat of Kevlar. You're so confident this is right. And so all those helpful people, and we've all got them in our lives, who say, oh, I don't really think that's right for you. Just like that man who said you didn't have the it back in the day. Those helpful people may say those helpful things, and I put air quotes around that, but you won't listen because you know what's right for you, and you will go forward. And so I went through a process where I had to redefine who I was and figure that out. And knowing that, ABC Radio came to me and offered me a radio job. I said, well, I don't want to, I left the Today Show because I really want to be home with my kid. And at that point, I didn't have the ability to leave my house. I was so profoundly depressed. I didn't even get dressed every day. And so I was going to do a radio show, that's for sure. And then they said,
this is your first child, right? So you're also
my very
learning
first
to be a mom.
Yeah. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of that. I was pretty much checked out from that too. I mean, beyond nursing the baby, seriously, I was really non-functioning. And, and I'm proud to say, I should have probably had professional help, but I'm proud to say I devised my own method of cognitive behavioral therapy. I now know that's what it was. And that really started me down this path of being fascinated by how our mindset can control everything in our life. And so most of the books I've written since then have to do with that. But yeah, no, I redefined who I was. And first I did a radio show. And you know who my first guest was? Oprah Winfrey. Oprah. Yeah. And my second guest was Barbara Walters. And let's face it, Oprah and Barbara don't do radio shows. But they wanted to come to the pity party for Deborah Norville because they wanted to show their support for a woman in our business. So again, those women were there for me. So why wouldn't I be there for somebody else? Yeah, they showed up in a big way.
I will tell you that when I left CNN, so they didn't renew my contract, and I decided to start my own company.
Yep.
A very good friend sat down with me and she said, we're not doing a business plan, and this will support your idea. We are going to do a belief plan. What are your beliefs? What are your values? What's important? What are your absolute no's?
Yeah.
And because I had that framework, as these different opportunities came up, it was really clear. It was like, oh, I do that. I don't do that. But I had to do the belief plan ahead in order to have my framework. It's the same kind of idea of what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
That's be going forward.
That's a great way. That's a better way, honestly, to frame it. Because you've built the structure of that future house, which is you. So you've laid the foundation, you've got the studs, you've got the proper spacing between the studs, and then you will build that new career, that new business with a very good foundation and framework. That's a terrific bit of advice.
And things fit or they don't. And then with your journey as it went from there, wasn't a straight line, but it did lead to Inside Edition, which would seem from here was a much better match for you, not only professionally, but personally, than had you stayed at the Today Show. Yeah.
And in fact, I realized there've only been 3 times in my life I've made career decisions for personal reasons. And the first was when I left Chicago, where I was a Monday through Friday anchor, and they were offering me, like the 10 o'clock news, which is the big one in local TV there. But I had a boyfriend in New York. And I started looking. He's now my husband of almost 38 years, so it was a good thing. But I started looking.
Wait, let me just jump in. How, if you're an anchor in Chicago, how do you meet a great guy in New York? How did that happen?
Blind date through your cousin in Sweden. That's a whole nother podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were a blind
Short
date.
answer.
And so we were commuter dating and needed to be in the same city, and he had a business, so he wasn't going to be able to pick up and leave. So I decided I've got to get a job in New York. And it just happened that Connie Chung was leaving Sunrise, and they literally auditioned everybody at NBC, and they start going into the O&O ranks. I worked at the NBC station in Chicago, and I got the job. So I moved to New York, not because I had a great job. That was just lucky. I moved because of this guy. And then I left CBS News after I did the radio show from the Today Show. Then I joined CBS News, and they offered me weekend anchor. That's a big deal. And, you know, if I'd taken that job, I probably would have been the first solo anchor, not Katie. But they offered me weekend anchor when I was expecting my second child. And I knew I couldn't be the wife and mom I wanted to be if I was on the road, because I was going to be on the road the rest of the time. So for the second time in my career, I made a professional decision for personal reasons. And who thought Inside Edition was going to last this long or be as fulfilling and meaningful, not just for me, but to America, as it has been. And the third decision was the decision to leave. And again, it was for family reasons. So back to your comment about building the framework and what the belief system is. When I've made my decisions in that framework, who I am, it's been the right decision. So I'm super confident about whatever this next chapter is going to be, because I know I've made the decision for the right reasons.
I would love to be in the room for so many of your conversations, like when you told these bosses, thanks, but no thanks. But also with your boyfriend, future husband, the good news is I have a job in New York. The bad news is I'll be getting up at 2:17 every morning, and I won't be much fun past 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's also even more scary than that. It was like, okay, I'm moving to New York for this person. I really hope he's the right guy. You know, it was a leap of faith on my part, and obviously the right one. But isn't that what faith is? The belief in things not seen. And, you know, and I believe whatever this next chapter is going to be awesome. I can't know that, but I can have faith that that's the case, and therefore go proudly and positively and confidently into the future.
I mean, you can't know that everything is going to work out, but what you can know is that you're making these decisions based on who you certainly know who you are, what is good for your family, and with all the correct intentions. And how it kind of works out or doesn't work out is almost details after that, right?
Yeah.
Because it was made with the right purpose.
Well, how many times do you feel yourself saying or hear people saying, trust the process? If you have a process that is solid, you should be fine. So
one of the things you're doing, you are hosting a game show.
Go figure.
That's
really.
That's its own fun story. Where did that come from?
So all these years that I've been at CBS, which owns Inside Edition, I was constantly haranguing them. You know, I've got bandwidth. I need to do more stuff. You know, I'm bored. I need to do things. Put me in, coach. Exactly. and I'd pitch them with some ideas that I had. And I honestly believe that last summer they just said, oh, for heaven's sakes, just shut the woman up. Let's just go shoot this pilot with her. It'll probably turn out to be nothing. And so last summer we shot a pilot for a game show called The Perfect Line. And it's a new concept, but it's actually quite simple. The object is for the contestants to just put things in the logical order. So in the pilot, one of the things was, you know, the Julie Andrews musical Sound of Music, and the song My Favorite Things. So one of the questions was, I'll put one of the lyrics from the Sound of Music's My Favorite Things on the board, and let's say it's Bright Copper Kettles. And Daryn, you're our first contestant. Your clue is
pressure's on.
Warm woolen mittens. Does warm woolen mittens come in the song before or after Bright Copper Kettles? And if you need to sing, you just go right ahead.
No, if we need this podcast to go, we will not.
No singing.
True story, 7th grade, I tried out for choir. And Mrs. Wyatt, the music teacher, said, you know, Daryn, the school newspaper is right down the hall. And that's how a journalism career began.
Well, there you go. Thanks to
I'm tone deaf.
a terrible voice. That's great.
Yes, we won't have me sing. But okay, warm woolen mittens and the copper.
Bright copper kettles.
I'm going to say, and this is just a guess, mittens goes before the kettles.
So sorry. You're wrong. You had a 50% chance. So you're out this round. But let's say you would have gotten it right. Then you would share in the money that round. At the end of 4 rounds, the guy with the most money or gal goes to the final round and they can win as much as $15,000. So it's not as brain breaking as Jeopardy. You got a good chance of guessing the right answer, which is always, nice. And if you know it, then you know it. So that's a really good thing.
Do you know why I think it's going to work? Because even in that description, I can picture sitting in front of the television. It's one of those game shows that you talk at the TV. Like you mentioned, like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, you're guessing the puzzle or you feel like you're part of it. It's not just being a passive viewer.
But just like people are listening to our conversation, you can listen to it. So you might be in the kitchen making supper and not actually looking at the TV screen, but you can hear what's going on and you can guess the answers without having to be glued to the set. So we know how busy everybody's lives are. Nobody's sitting in one place for very long. This will hopefully be something that works for busy people's lives too. But it's a lot of fun. I can't wait to get it on TV.
I picture a huge, huge hit. And so you're coming home to Georgia to do this, correct?
Yes, I'm so excited.
Like 6 weeks of summer.
Exactly. Shooting later this summer. And what I'm really excited about, I said, we're going to need people to help with audience coordination and runners and production coordinators and stuff. And they said, yeah, we will. I said, well, you know where you can find them. The University of Georgia, Grady College of Journalism. And so we've got 5 students who have been employed. They are making money. They will have professional credits and 1 intern. So I've got 6 students from the Grady School who are working on the game show. My alma mater. And
alma mater, exactly. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Yeah. So very happy that I'm getting to do this great game show, but I'm also getting to create an opportunity for terrific young people to get their foot in the business.
That's just incredible. So we've got the game show. We have time with Carl. What else is on the agenda of our new chapter? I
got a couple of things that, you don't want to jinx them by talking about them before that. Like I hate these people say, oh, I'm writing a book. And then like, where's the book? Where's the book? I never talked about books until they literally had a pub date. And then I would say, oh, I've written this book. So what I would love to do is come back on when there is something concrete that I can talk about.
You have a standing invitation.
Thank you.
Have any of these adult children produced? Do they understand the assignment? Has anybody produced a grandchild for you yet?
Well, I can now answer that question in the affirmative. I'm going to be a grandmother.
No way. Are we breaking news?
We're breaking news.
Well,
I don't know if we're breaking news because we know, but yeah, no, they're far enough along that it's okay for me to say that yes, I can be a grandmother, and I've already started knitting the Christmas stocking for a baby to be named later, who is supposed to come in October.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations!
Thank you so much.
Well,
we're super excited.
The most important question of this entire chat is, have you picked your grandmother name?
Well, no, I haven't. And I would love it if your listeners and viewers would like to provide some hints or some suggestions, because I honest to gosh don't know what it will be, but it can't be grandma. And my husband's Swedish.
And you're not a granny.
And I'm granny. And in Swedish, it would be far more. That's grandmother in Swedish. And that doesn't sound so cool. So we got to come up with something good. So the hunt is on.
Okay. The hunt is on. And maybe the baby to be will actually come up with a name. Some people say that, like they will name you.
Yeah. My grandmother, she was always Grandma Carpenter. And then she would make, every time she came over to my sister's kids, she would always bring a tin of chocolate chip cookies. And my eldest niece couldn't say chocolate chip, but she would say Chachi. And Grandma would always bring the chocolate chips. Her name became Chachi. So
okay.
So that could very well be how it happens. Just the baby comes up with it.
Well, I am thrilled for you. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
I tell my girls, this is why we do the children thing. where's my grandchild?
Yeah.
It's a little bit early, but
okay. But they'll get there.
So exciting. If no other reason, that would be a reason to leave Inside Edition, to be on full-time call.
Do you know what's so crazy? They told me, I guess it was about 10 days after I told my employer that I wasn't going to, renew the contract. They told me that they were expecting, was like, it's meant to be. It's meant to be. I see a sign.
That is just amazing. Well, I am so excited for you and so thrilled and all these great things. And yes, you have a standing invitation to come back and talk about any and all great things,
Thank you.
Including the baby. Bring a baby picture.
Okay, I'd love to.
All that, and would love to extend an invitation. So we are here, Trent and I, and then we have our neighbor's property, which we've turned into an Airbnb. And so while you are up in Atlanta this summer, if you and Carl want to get away, or the kids, if you want to meet anybody, come on down. We'll take you out and see all the barrier islands. And
it's so beautiful. I mean, just with the Spanish moss behind you right there in the back of your TV studio. It's incredible. Wow. Thank you for the invitation.
See us at Miss Lou's Cabin. We would love to have you.
Would love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daryn. It's so great to see you.
Congratulations, Deborah. I'm just thrilled for you. And here's to all the things that are starting, not starting over, but all the things that are starting.
Thanks a million. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great conversation with Deborah Norville. I enjoyed that so much. And the thing I'm going to take away from that and be thinking about, we started all this talking about starting over. And I think her point is, it's not about starting over. It's just about starting. But as you start, know who you are, know your why, know your values. And that's really what's going to guide you as you go into that next chapter. And speaking of next chapters, how about breaking some news there? Deborah Norville is going to be a grandmother. I am so excited for her. And she's asking us for help, as you do with a friend. You ask a friend, what should my grandma name be? So can we do it? Can we help Deborah Norville come up with her grandma name? If you have any suggestions, there's a lot of ways to get the suggestion to me and to her. You can comment here down below. You can also reach out on any of the social media platforms. You can find Call Me Friend Podcast and look for a clip, and you can comment there. And I have a phone number you can call. The number for Call Me Friend is 912-766-0446. You can call that number 24/7 because I don't hear it ring. It goes right to voicemail. So if you are listening at 2 a.m. and you have a great idea about what Deborah Norville's grandma name should be, then pick up the phone and just call 912-766-0446. You've been listening to Call Me Friend. This episode has been powered by Miss Lou's Cabin, an Airbnb property on a remote section of the Georgia coast. The podcast executive producers of this show are Daryn Kagan and me, Daryn Kagan. The show is produced by Produce Your Podcast and Journeyist Inc. Production help by Abe Fallick, Tammy Gagno, and Rob Paw.
Before you go, Call Me Friend is more than a podcast, it's a community. So head over to callmefriendpodcast.com to join the conversation. Or you can call or send a text to 912-766-0446, and you can leave Daryn a message there, or maybe even share a story of your own. Because when life gets real, you don't have to go it alone. Call a friend. Call this friend.